When news of Peabo Bryson's passing spread, millions of music lovers around the world shared the same feeling. They had just lost one of the most distinctive voices of their time. For decades, he had sung about love, hope, and better dreams. His voice resonated at weddings, family evenings, and throughout the childhoods of millions of listeners through timeless Disney songs. But when his family gathered to say their final goodbye, what moved them most was not only the loss of a husband, a father, or a legendary artist. It was also the reflection on the extraordinary life he had lived. Because behind the Grammy Awards, the multi-platinum hits, and the stage spotlight lay a little-known story. A story that began in poverty, rose to the heights of fame, fell into financial hardship, and then rose again through remarkable resilience. And by the end of his life, Peabo Bryson left behind a legacy that brought his loved ones to tears. Not only because of its material value, but because of what it represented, a life that never surrendered to fate. To understand why that legacy carried such weight, we must return to where it all began, a poor farm in South Carolina, where a young Peabo Bryson first learned what resilience truly meant. Long before the world knew Peabo Bryson as a Grammy-winning vocalist or the king of duets in R&B, he was just a boy growing up in extremely modest circumstances in the American South. His childhood was marked by hard labor and difficulties that are hard to imagine today. As the eldest child in the family, Peabo quickly understood that life was not always fair. During a time when racial segregation was still deeply present in many places, his family worked tirelessly just to survive. Those years shaped a resilience that stayed with him for life. While other children thought about games or childhood adventures, Peabo often thought about how to help his family earn more and how to make tomorrow better than today. In the midst of that hardship, music became his refuge. The greatest influence came from his mother. She often took him to see soul and gospel performers, allowing him to experience for the first time the powerful magic of music. In those melodies, Peabo saw a world far larger than the fields and struggles that surrounded him. Music quickly became a burning passion. But for Peabo, singing was not just a hobby, it was also a chance to change his life. At just 14 years old, he began performing with a local band called Al Freeman and the Upsetters. While many teenagers his age were still in school and enjoying their youth, Peabo was already stepping onto stages to help support his family. Those early performances did not bring fame or wealth. Small venues, modest pay, and long journeys were the reality he faced. But it was there that Peabo learned how to connect with audiences, how to tell a story through his voice, and how to turn emotion into music. What was remarkable was that even in those early years, he already had a distinctive voice. It was not only powerful, but also warm and sincere, making listeners naturally connect with it. People who worked with him in his youth often said that Peabo had the ability to make a song feel as if he was speaking directly to each person in the room. He did not know it at the time, but this special ability would later take him from small stages in the American South to the most prestigious award ceremonies in the world. And as the 1980s began, the music world was finally about to discover what his family and friends had known for a long time. Peabo Bryson was not just a talented singer, he was a voice born to become a legend. While many artists became famous through solo performances, Peabo made his mark through emotionally rich duets. His warm, powerful voice that never overwhelmed his partner made him the ideal collaborator for many leading female vocalists of the time. Gradually, the music industry began to refer to him by a special title, the King of Duets in R&B. Peabo's name became increasingly well known through a series of successful songs, but the biggest turning point in his career came from an unexpected place: Disney. In 1992, Disney chose Peabo Bryson and Celine Dion to perform the theme song for the animated film Beauty and the Beast. The song quickly became a global phenomenon. With its romantic melody and emotional performance by both singers, it not only won over audiences, but also earned both an Academy Award and a Grammy. For Peabo, this was a life-changing moment. After years of recognition within the R&B world, he had now become a household name across the globe. But an even bigger surprise came just 1 year later. In 1993, Disney once again invited him to perform the song A Whole New World with Regina Bell for the film Aladdin. If Beauty and the Beast opened a new door, then A Whole New World brought Peabo Bryson to the peak of global fame. The song reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the most successful movie soundtracks of all time. It also earned Peabo another prestigious Grammy, making him one of the very few artists to achieve consecutive major wins at the height of his career. Interestingly, despite millions of records sold and awards many artists only dream of, Peabo remained humble. People who worked with him often said he treated backstage staff with the same respect as major stars. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Fame, money, awards, and public admiration had all arrived. But behind the stage lights, there was one part of his life where Peabo Bryson never truly found peace. That was love. And in this most private area of life, the man who had touched millions of hearts with love songs was faced with fears that very few people knew about. If one only looked at Peabo Bryson on stage, it would be easy to assume he was the embodiment of the romantic songs he performed. He sang about love with rare sincerity, making millions believe he must be a man living a completely fulfilled romantic life. But the reality was far more complex. For many years, Peabo Bryson kept his private life relatively discreet. He had several serious relationships and came very close to marriage more than once. Yet strangely, each time a decisive moment approached, he would step back. Those close to him said Peabo carried an unexplainable fear of marriage. Not because he did not believe in love, but because he understood too well the pressures that fame and the entertainment industry could place on a relationship. Over time, his broken engagements became a subject of media attention. The public took particular notice when his relationship with Juanita Leonard, the former wife of boxing legend Sugar Ray Leonard, ended despite expectations that they would marry. Later, history seemed to repeat itself with Angela Thigpen, a former Miss Virginia Teen USA. Once again, a wedding that many expected never took place. Each separation sparked new speculation. Some believed Peabo was too focused on his career. Others thought he simply had not found the right person. But those who knew him better understood one thing. Behind his confident stage presence was a man who was always cautious about fully giving his heart. While his career continued to flourish, his personal life lacked the stability he quietly longed for. And then, when everything seemed to be at its peak, a sudden event occurred. It was not a scandal or a musical failure. It was a severe financial crisis, one powerful enough to wipe out almost everything he had spent decades building. On August 21st of that year, the United States Internal Revenue Service, IRS, seized multiple assets belonging to Peabo Bryson in connection with tax debts and penalties that were believed to have accumulated over many years. In a short time, the man who had once stood on the stages of America's most prestigious award ceremonies suddenly became the focus of a public financial crisis. News spread quickly. The press reported that his Atlanta mansion had been seized and that a wide range of personal assets had been placed up for auction. From furniture, electronics, and clothing to shoe collections and valuable career memorabilia, everything risked being sold off. But what hurt Peabo the most was not the material value. According to those close to him, the most difficult moment to accept was seeing memorabilia tied to the peak years of his career also being put up for auction. Awards that once symbolized the height of artistic achievement were now being treated as ordinary items for sale. It was a shock, not only financially, but emotionally as well. After years of building his name, he was forced to watch his life being dissected in public. The successes once celebrated were now overshadowed by headlines about debt and financial crisis. Many artists might have collapsed after such a setback. But what stood out about Peabo Bryson was that he did not choose to disappear. Instead of blaming circumstances or seeking sympathy, he started over. He continued performing, accepted smaller shows, and quietly worked to resolve his financial obligations. It was no longer the story of a star enjoying success, but of a man determined to reclaim his life. Looking back, many believe that this difficult period changed Peabo more than any award he had ever received. It forced him to reassess what truly mattered in life. And perhaps because of that, when love finally arrived, he embraced it in a completely different way. After many years of avoiding marriage and long-term commitments, Peabo Bryson eventually found the peace he had been searching for almost his entire life. In 2010, Peabo married Tanya Boniface. For the public, it was simply a wedding. But for those who understood the story behind it, it was far more meaningful. The man who had repeatedly called off engagements, who had feared long-term commitment, and who had spent much of his life avoiding marriage, finally chose to place his trust in one woman. Those close to him noticed a clear change after the marriage. Peabo became calmer, more relaxed, and seemed to have found a sense of peace that fame and money had never provided. But the greatest gift was still ahead. In 2018, at the age of 66, Peabo Bryson welcomed his son, Robert Kit Bryson. It was a moment that completely changed the way he viewed life. In conversations with friends, he admitted that becoming a father at that age gave him a stronger reason to live, to work, and to take better care of his health. People who met Peabo during this period often described him a man very different from the famous star he had been years earlier. He preferred talking about his family rather than awards, and sharing stories about his son rather than discussing career achievements. After everything he had been through, what he was most proud of was no longer gold records or large stages. It was coming home after every performance and seeing his family waiting for him. Perhaps that is why, when a serious health crisis struck in 2019, Peabo had an even stronger reason to fight. According to information shared later, his condition at the time was extremely serious. At certain points, doctors could not provide any guarantee of recovery. Family, friends, and fans could only pray. But once again, Peabo Bryson did what he had done many times in his life. He fought and overcame it. The recovery process was not easy. It required patience, discipline, and strong willpower. However, those close to him believed that his greatest motivation was not music or fame. It was his family. He wanted to see his son grow up. He wanted to continue standing beside the woman who had been with him during the most peaceful years of his life. After that ordeal, Peabo's view of success changed significantly. He no longer spoke much about charts or awards. Instead, he often emphasized resilience, gratitude, and the people who stood by him when things became difficult. That became his greatest legacy. He had experienced glory, faced failure, overcome illness, and finally found the happiness he had waited for over many years. It was a journey no amount of money could measure. The family's tears were not only from the pain of loss, but also from gratitude and pride in being part of the story of a man who left an unforgettable mark on music and life. If you also grew up with Peabo Bryson's songs, share which of his tracks left the deepest impression on you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to discover more inspiring stories behind the musical legends the world will never forget.